So let's get started. My name is Beth Huffman. I am a vice president here at Poston Communications, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Silvia Coulter, and she is the principal at LawVision. So you are getting the experience from a longtime communications person who spent 8 years as a CMO, and of course, Silvia, who has been in the industry for a long time and is going to come and speak a lot on the lateral integration from the lateral standpoint, as well as her work with law firms to help laterals be integrated. So Poston Communications, I'm just going to go quickly over the slide. We celebrated our 20th anniversary last year. We are a full service communications and PR firm. We have obviously a big law firm space. We work heavily in the crisis comm space, and we're here to help you. In particular, after our webinar today, if you feel you really need some help in coming up with your own plan for lateral integration, you can reach out to me. And Silvia will tell us a bit about LawVision.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's great to be here today and partnering with Poston. So LawVision has been around for quite a while. Our consultants were formerly part of the Hildebrandt team, and then Thomson Reuters retired the Hildebrandt name, and we came up with LawVision. So we rebranded an old brand, which some of you are probably familiar doing somewhere along your career path. So we consult with law firms on anything that has to do with running a law firm, except for IT infrastructure and communications, thus partnering with Poston. And I head up our business development team. So we focus on the business development side, helping law firms with anything from client retention, client growth, and new business development. We do a lot of training and coaching, strategic account management. Great to be here.
Thanks. We're thrilled to have you, Silvia.
Thank you.
So I just want to give a little color to start. I've worked with 2 major law firms. I've worked with very senior staff, very junior staff. And I think what we want to establish first off is why it's important to help the lateral get off to a good start. It's important for you to understand the competition for laterals, the competition for press, and the economics behind it. I was recently at a presentation by the American Lawyer, and they presented something from firm prospects. If you can see here, we might have people outside the MLaw 200, but most of my statistics will be related to the MLaw 200. There are more than 12,000 lateral moves during the year, 2,700 of them partners. That's a lot of competition, folks. That's a lot of laterals. That's 52 partners a week. I spoke to AmLaw's Gina Passarella Cipriani about it, and she said it's sometimes 15 press releases a day to the main desk or some of their other desks, and they pick 2, maybe 3, depending on the news day. So there's a lot of competition to get your lateral or your lateral group coverage. And you can see here that it's fairly consistent. Last year, the 3rd quarter, which I never would have guessed was the busiest quarter, but you can see it's pretty steady. Obviously, there's a lot of associate moves. I'm going to start right now by telling you almost nobody's going to get an associate announcement. I've joined an associate. You have to be in a very small market, a very small niche. They're looking for, at least the American Lawyer, Bloomberg, Reuters, Law 360, they're looking for partner-to-partner lateral announcements. That's who they're focusing on if you're hoping to get press for them. So this is what many of you might not know. It costs a lot of money to get a lateral, a lot. You're talking about the payment to recruiters, the actual spend of manpower hours to get them. Some of them are paid bonuses. Some of them are paid guarantees. They're given other things throughout the year. You have to bring in their staff, their team, their associates. So it's a big investment for a law firm. It can be up to $5 million or more, depending on the book of business of what it's going to cost. And Silvia, can you give us the law firm side of why it's so important, this investment that it work out?
Well, just from a financial standpoint, it's really, really important, but it's disruptive too, right? I mean, the lateral's taking a risk, or the lateral team, and the firm is taking a risk. And then let's not forget about the client side of things, right? So this can be very disruptive to clients. So the cost is significant, and the gain could be just as significant, but we're going to talk about how to make the most, how to really leverage these lateral moves.
Okay. So a few more statistics. The big one being the second bullet. 75% of lateral partner hires fail. Now, it's a variety of reasons. It wasn't a good fit. The grass wasn't always greener. That wasn't quite what they thought. So law firms are doing more and more to make sure that doesn't happen. And we talked about 48% of partners leave the firm within 5 years. So Silvia, we talked about any other thoughts on why they're leaving?
The whole integration piece is really, really difficult. And, as a partner and, any lawyer in the firm, but particularly the partners, I've got to bill so many hours. I've got to mentor associates. I've got to manage client relationships, manage matters and cases. And all of a sudden now I've got to manage these laterals and integrate them into the firm. And it just becomes overwhelming, I think, for the partners in the firm. So some of that load falls on the laterals to really help themselves integrate into the firm and build these relationships in the same manner they would build referral relationships outside of the firm. So I think if they, as long as everybody is on the same page that we want this to be successful. And also, I know you're going to talk about this in a few minutes, Beth, but internal communication sometimes is missing. And there's a huge opportunity to really raise that up among everybody, and that really helps as well.
What is a fail? A fail, 48% are leaving, but a fail is also they didn't bring the book they thought they were going to bring. That's a big one. They fail to integrate with the group, but it's usually a financial fail, and they might stay longer than 5 years and thus jump it up, but they don't in the end bring what the firm had hoped they would bring. And you can see now in these days of multiple billion-dollar law firms we have, 40 million a year for lost partners might sound not like a lot, but it's not money the law firm wants to lose.
Right.
And then the other big thing, Silvia, again, on the business side, talk to us about how laterals now, that's how firms are growing. It's not a homegrown firm.
This is fascinating because I recently attended a presentation by somebody from Georgetown Law, and a fellow from Georgetown Law, and Thomson Reuters. And interestingly enough, especially the AmLaw 100 firms are, when you look at the growth, it's due largely in part to lateral hires and rate increases. It's not gaining share of wallet with existing clients. And that's pretty much true through AmLaw 150. And then you get to the lower 200 and beyond 200. And their growth, yes, it is from laterals, but it's also because they're gaining client share of wallet from the larger firms. And they need to staff these matters and cases. And so the lateral hiring in those firms becomes really important because they need really well-trained, lawyers with great experience. And so it's really interesting how firms are growing. But the AmLaw 200 in general, relying on laterals for growth, you dovetail that with the previous slides we just saw, that a lot of this lateral integration is not working as well as it should. It's a big risk for firms. It's a big risk, and the laterals, obviously, and the clients.
So let's talk about shifting our mindset to, today I'm announcing 3 laterals and they're out of my brain next week. But we have to get out of that thought process and think about being involved in their long-term success. It's really a 1-year integration. I'll take a couple of bullet points and Silvia will take some. The first is you have to think about a lateral as an opportunity for you as a PR professional. You now have hopefully somebody else in your book of speakers who you can pitch, or when you're getting opportunities, you have one more strong person to be putting out there. Also, it helps your relationship with not only that lateral, but any integration you help with going forward. But Silvia, talk to us a little bit about the tactics and the coaching.
So, this is a great opportunity for the business professionals in the law firm because, you can really guide how the beginning of the integration and lay a foundation for success. So first of all, the client list, that seems really obvious. Well, of course, they're going to bring their client list. Of course, we're going to be prepared with all of that. But what we're seeing is not so much. And so client lists from the firm and the lateral, they need to be combined. So where are the opportunities for the lateral? And again, it can't just be let's go pitch the client, because clients don't want to be pitched. It's what's the benefit and what's the client looking for, and how do I pitch my partners who have those client relationships. So again, building those internal relationships is so critical, which ultimately gets you to building the client relationships. And then another business professional opportunity here is really keeping in touch with these laterals and coaching one-on-one. And we think that's very, very important. And not everybody has the time. The time demands are huge. And so we don't have lots and lots of time to individually spend with all these individuals coming into the firm, but it's critical, and you can really be part of their success and therefore the overall firm success. So are they staying on track? Small amounts of to-dos, right? So that they get it accomplished. But someone, you can be in the driver's seat here of making sure that they're doing the things they need to do to successfully integrate into the firm and thus the client base. And then content and communications is key. And Beth, I'll let you talk a little bit more about that.
So our job as communication professionals is obviously promoting the firm through PR and through thought leadership, whether it's helping them get in Law 360, helping them on external communications. But internal communications, I have found, because as a marketing professional or a communications professional, I'm sometimes siloed. There are silos. If you are just the communications person, you may know the corporate people and the litigation people and the IP people. So quite often you're going to be really helpful in at least introductions. In the internal communications is who's here. I can't tell you how many times a lateral has said, help. I mean, called me a week later and said, help, I need to meet people. And it's a simple email or introductions. So we will talk about that in a little bit too. How you can make a difference. So when you're getting ready for your lateral, as we've said, the competition is fierce. You're going to have to start thinking and strategizing your communications plan. How do they fit into the firm? Is it a trend? Is it a new offering? Is it a new practice? You have to use those messages of why. It's not just, oh, so-and-so joined in our house, this office, and you have to try to have some substance. The other thing, and we'll talk about it, is because the competition is fierce, think about other forms of pitching this lateral right off the bat. So if it's a one-off and you're not sure what kind of press you'll get, start thinking about the subject matter. Law 360 has a bazillion newsletters, and there might be some reason this lateral came because he or she is working in a hot topic area. Get the 4 hottest bullet points you can from that person and pitch them as an expert, as opposed to, I'm just going for the lateral story. That will really help get at least the word out about the lateral. So don't be laser focused on just the lateral announcement, but try to think a little bit bigger about how we can also talk about the practice areas. For instance, you might be in real estate finance and they'll give you a 2-sentence bullet point in their newsletter because they sometimes announce some laterals. But if you have a hot topic or a trend you can pitch, you're going to get a whole story. So start to think about that. And as I just said, you have to think about who needs to know about this lateral, because it's not always the legal press. Be connected. And Sylvia and I talked about this earlier.
Beth, can we go back?
Oh,
Sorry to
sure.
interrupt. Can we go back one slide? I just
Sure.
wanted to add one thing. So a lot of firms will say, well, great, how does it fit into the firm's strategic plan if the firm has a strategic plan? The firm may have a strategic plan and nobody may know about it. The firm might not have a strategic plan. There could be sort of an unwritten strategic plan, so to speak. So that's something that's really important. What's the focus of the firm and how does the lateral fit into that? And there's kind of four things that you could think about in terms of growing revenue. The first one is in terms of the opportunity to grow revenue. The first one is selling existing services to existing clients. So here's why the client hires us, and selling more of those services to the existing client. The second big opportunity is selling new services to existing clients. So what that really means is selling services for which the client doesn't currently use the firm. And this is a huge, huge window of opportunity for laterals. And again, in order to do that, to sell new services to existing clients, I first have to build relationships with the existing partners of those clients. And then the third rung of that ladder in terms of revenue opportunity is selling existing services to new clients. So new clients for what the firm is known for, right? So developing new areas, new client opportunities for our existing services. Again, that's if that's part of the firm's strategy, targeting a new market and new clients, the lateral can jump right in on that because they already don't have, nobody's got relationships necessarily with these clients yet. And then the last one is new services for which the firm's not known to new clients. So we just brought in a whole group of laterals on cybersecurity. Our firm's not known for cybersecurity. So again, to Beth's point, how do we send that messaging out? How do we talk about that? So it's not just about the practice, it's about knowing the clients. And again, I would go to that second rung of the ladder, selling new services to existing clients first. So it's existing services to existing clients, new services to existing clients, meaning services they don't hire us for. And so those are the two big opportunities, and the laterals can fit right into that. If there is no known strategic plan, that could be the plan, frankly.
Again, on the connected side, do a broad loop of who might know. I've gotten calls from an office managing partner. I didn't know this person was coming in because it was more practice group focused. And, how do they introduce them around the office? Because that's a double opportunity. If the office is full service, they can meet people in the office as opposed to just the practice group. You have to make sure you have everybody who needs to be involved in making sure it's a good lateral announcement. I've found my relationship with recruiting to be pivotal. They're usually the ones that send me the email address, the CV, tell you a little bit about the person and who brought them in or why they're coming in. Obviously, you have to quote certain people. You want to make sure the social media team's involved. What's not on here is, of course, the rest of the marketing team. Quite often, I've been as the head of comms, the first person who knows the date of the person, etc. And we also have to connect them with the people who manage the CRM and make sure they're getting their contacts out. And how are we going to integrate them? So if you don't have a chat or some kind of system in the marketing department to share information about laterals, you need to. Sylvia, any other thoughts there?
I think I think these are, I would say this is primary, right?
Right.
And I think as secondary, Beth, it's really important to let the support staff know, in every office, let the IT, all of the support functions and professionals in the firm. Are they primary, the first point of contact No, not necessarily, but they're like primary and a half, they're right behind these individuals who have to know, and
Right.
these are
I do
must
hope
know.
most firms have some type of lateral checklist where the right person is brought in. You're correct, but maybe at smaller firms you don't. So you do need
Mm-hmm.
to make sure. I've worked with office managers before in helping to bring their people. I frankly don't ever like to make a lateral announcement unless I get on the phone or an email saying they are in the building. That's a big tip.
Yeah.
Find out if they're in the building. I've had it twice where I sat all day and waited and had people say, why aren't you announcing so-and-so? It's because I haven't heard they're here, and guess what? They didn't come. So you do need to have that relationship going too. Um, Being organized. I can't stress enough that you have a checklist that everybody sees or has access to, so something doesn't get lost, whether it's their CRM stuff or their internal announcement, their external announcement, whose team they're on in terms of who the BD person. And we also have to, of course, I think, have a lateral checklist. The laterals, will come to that, is responsible for some things. Do a backgrounder. I have brought on at the two major firms I've been at each firm brought on what I would call a person who was a highly polarizing political figure at both firms. And you need to know that. You need to know what might come up, how you should be ready, who's been, is there a blog that's targeting them? You should also ask them, frankly, do they have press connections, and make sure the press connections are on your list. But get to know your lateral. Know if they use social media or don't. If not, you better have your social media team teamed up to help them get a LinkedIn page. Find out if they have upcoming presentations. And then I can't stress enough about working with the marketing BD leads. I have seen firms where I don't want to call it a competition, but the relationship is not as strong and collaborative as it should be between the BD marketing folks and the communications team. Those BD people know the practice group better than you ever will. They'll help you with your talking points. They'll help you know important things about the differentiators between this person and somebody else. Sylvia?
Mm-hmm. And I also think that, whoever was usually, I mean, obviously the recruiting people the recruiting professionals are involved most of the time with these. Sometimes you get a partner who just brings in a lateral randomly, right? Because they know them. But generally the recruiting people are in, and it's so important to make them part of this process because they did the interviews. They may, their perspective is going to be different than ours as marketing and BD professionals and communications professionals. And there may be some really, gems that they can contribute that we haven't thought of, or we don't know, or the lateral didn't tell us about. And so I would say, it's kind of a team collaboration to launch this whole thing and just make it more successful.
I agree. Timely, and this has been in a couple of questions. Anybody who's an international firm knows that things break in Europe before you want to, but in the US, we're a little bit better about keeping them quiet till we want to make the announcement. But don't wait too long, because they will ask. They will ask, when did they join? If you say a month ago, they'll be like, nope, don't, not. So try to be timely. Try to tie it, if you can, to anything going on. Anybody announcing anybody in the next couple of weeks that isn't seeing if that practice area is tied to a hot topic, to an administration change, the administration's edicts, any of those things, you're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
The easy ones, everybody always says, never do Friday, try not to do Monday, be conscious of the deadlines, try to go by between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. East Coast time, where the bulk of the media is. If you do a late in the day announcement, they've probably already got their list of everything assigned for the day, and you might miss out due to that. The big thing is, yes, and there's been a couple questions, a group sells way better. A new office sells way better than a solo, but you don't really have to be in the same group. I have distinct memories of X firm hires 5 partners in 5 cities today. group it that way. Or the firm, if you can get a group of 3 to 4 people over the space of a week to 10 days, and you can say firm X enhances its corporate offering with 4 partner announcements. Those always are easier. Obviously, it's great if you get a 10-person group that comes in at one time, but if you can somehow try to group them together, that does work. I know there's sometimes pushback. I've heard the pushback, and like, oh, well, we're not really involved with the real estate people, or but if they'll listen to you, if you think it's a better way to show the overall growth of the firm, push back, because you are the specialist. Also, I do love announcing. You can always announce somebody's coming in and, hey, they've just joined and there'll be a speaker at our seminar next week, and drive people to get to learn more about them.
Beth, on being timely, there's another timely thing that you can do from a business development standpoint, which is, in the laterals practice, is there a hot topic right now? And if there is, then send a note out internally to the firm saying, this person is going to run a webinar at 12 o'clock today, blah, blah, blah time, and to talk about these key things that are impacting businesses today or clients today. So reach out to your client. This is a great opportunity to be proactive with your client. And that's a different twist on being timely, but what's really hot, and is it hot that we could just, like, okay, today at noontime, even though we don't need to be over prepared for everything. And sometimes that really gets the attention of the lawyers internally, and it definitely can get the attention of the clients. So, as long as the talking points are there so that they understand what they need to reach out to their clients about this webinar and what's going to be covered.
Oh, a great frustration has always been for me that many, many lawyers do not know the offerings of the firm. So however you can get that information to them, it's really important.
Yeah.
Just a few press release tips. Most of you are professionals at writing press releases, but I spoke at length with the American lawyer before we set up this webinar. And Gina said, you tell them right there, they don't have to want to put in what firm they came from, but I'm not going to put it in until I know what firm they came from. So if you don't want to put it in the press release, put it in your notes. Yes, the lateral is from this firm. Yes, this is when it happened, because they're going to call you, and they may not publish till they get those answers. As I said before, most publications are only interested in partner to partner, or somebody who was in-house coming back to private practice. And they do like quotes nowadays. Gone are the days where they have enough reporters assigned to do a lot of stories, and quite often they're just going to cut and paste from your press release. So make it AP style, use quotes that they can pull, try to make sure that the quotes aren't just vanilla, that it says why they're coming, why they're important, what their practice area is. Again, the notes in the email pitch are very important, including, hey, they're available at this time if you'd like to speak to them, and you need a photo. I was explaining to Silvia, at many of our offices, I would have an office manager who would go and just take a photo with their iPhone that I could use, because you need a photo for social media. And if you haven't been able to arrange their headshot, most mobile phones now will take a photo good enough that you can crop it and use it for publication, and you need it. You need it. And if you look, when you go to any of the big publications, American Lawyer, Law 360, they do have that headshot with the lateral announcement. Being prepared on launch day, have your checklist. Know when the lateral is available. Sometimes it's better to wait till day 2. They don't have their laptop. They don't know their phone number. You can't find them if the press calls. So make sure the lateral knows who you are and who's going to call them if there is a member of the press that might want to speak to them. Make sure they're prepped, just a few notes. They can talk about their practice, but make sure, I urge you all to have a firm policy that we don't speak badly about where we came from, that I was looking for a good fit. Perhaps my practice has evolved into an international practice, and my platform before didn't really help with that, but make sure they're prepped. Do an internal announcement. I've heard people complain over the years, well, I had to read it in the news, or some type of internal announcement. Most people aren't doing emails anymore, and I did those very, very early in my career, but put it on the intranet, have an email to the firm leaders. Most of them know about the vote, but they don't know that it's starting that day. Try to make sure the bio's on the website. A lot of reporters are going to go and try to get more information. You should have an email prepped with at least the lateral's contact details. Here's my new email, here's my new phone number, and here's you can do a little tease of the press release with a link to the press release, something they can email to clients and contacts. Anything else, Sylvia, on that one?
Well, I was going to ask you a question, Beth. Has anyone ever, because PR is not my first skill here, has any firm ever done a press conference? Like if a big lateral group moves in, or it's a big name from government,
Yeah.
or the GC of big corporation is
Yeah.
now. I mean, it seems like that would be an interesting way to go.
I've never done that, and I have certainly brought in some extremely high profile laterals, and I've never done that because having been a member of press, a lot of times they want original content.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult now. They don't want to be on the same call and they want personal reach. So I could say that you could absolutely do it if you were bringing in the former U.S. Attorney General. Yeah, I might think about doing that. But you're also going to get private requests as well, that people are like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I want a private moment with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maximizing exposure, building your list. Again, does the lateral have any clients? What do the clients read? Are they a real estate finance group? Are they a private equity group? Who needs to get it? It's not always just AmLaw Law 360. Do they warrant national media? Local media? You could be a nice, Denver, Colorado firm and be like, okay, this person is meaningful in my market because they have served X, or they're the ones who were environmental law managed to clean up. And this Charleston, South Carolina comes to mind. People very active in preserving the environment in Charleston, and they would be important locally, and how, again, maybe not the announcement, but what they're working on, and use that to get it moved over. Again, I spoke to Gina at length, and if you want to be an AmLaw and differentiate yourself, you call her, you give it, or Christine Simmons, the head of the news business desk, one of them, and say, I would like to give you this lateral first, meaning you can publish at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and as soon as your story goes up, then I'll send my release to the wider audience. You can negotiate that. You can do an embargoed interview. They can do the interview the day before, have the story ready to go and teed up, and you get one of these news blasts. You can absolutely trust them on that, or prearrange the interview so people get it fast. You might get some pushback. I had somebody in Philadelphia, every time I gave it to the intelligence at first, got upset. I was like, well, this is where my lawyers want to be. I'm sorry that you didn't get it first. And that is a risk to do it, but they're very, very open to it, at least AmLaw. Law 360 seems to be a little different, harder sell. I know if you're in the Beltway, Bloomberg is very interested with Bloomberg Legal. They have several people in DC. They would love to have first. If you're doing a lobbyist or somebody in DC that has a tie to like Politico, he loves to get that first. They love to get it first. So learn your audience, what's best on the media audience for your lateral. And again, I talked about the non-move interviews. Sylvia?
I was thinking as you're talking, Beth, it's, our business is all about, the BD side, building strong relationships. Maybe just talk a couple of minutes on how important it is for the PR professionals and the marketing professionals to stay connected to their contacts on a regular basis.
This is the number one thing I have preached for my 20+ year law firm experience. I had been a member of the media, so I had quite a few contacts. But when the COO or the CMO at my first position came, they were like, what do you need? I'm like, I just need to be able to go to New York. I need to go to be able to DC. I want to go meet a reporter. I want to go hear the reporter speak. I want to hear if the reporter uses Twitter. I manage, those are my clients. The members of the media are your clients. You need to know them. You need to check in with them. They write a nice article. You need to send them a note. Hey, I saw your article. Good reporting. It's all a relationship business, and you should be watching them. And I have seen, and so for those of you who don't know, I have joined Poston just 4 months ago after being at 2 large law firms for the last 2 decades. And I had reporters I hadn't worked with in years come to me and say, hey, this is great. We can talk, how can we work with you again? So your relationship with those reporters is what will make you successful. I 100% agree with that. Now, Silvia, let's talk about this. Obviously, the lateral has to do his or her part.
Absolutely.
And
So
some of
yeah,
this is
go ahead.
easy, but if you could talk in general, this slide is self-explanatory, I think.
Absolutely. And, so I think sometimes when we've talked with laterals, and of course we get involved on the BD side and helping them. I just had a conversation last week with a lateral, incredible practice, multi-millions, and she's not well integrated into her firm yet. And we're trying to figure out, okay, or they're trying to figure out, how can we make this work better? And so, the lateral responsibilities, and it's worth having a conversation with them about this. Everyone's got to set expectations, right? So on the lateral side, having them set their own expectations, right? And understanding what those expectations are. And then, this particular partner, it's, I'm ultra responsive to my clients and I'm assigning important work to the other members of the firm. She is integrating that way, but she's not happy about their response time. Their response time is fine. It's right on the money, but it's not what she would do. So I think part of it is aligning expectations of the clients, aligning expectations of the laterals and the partners in the firm, and then within themselves. It's like, let's just all be on the same page and be aligned. And I think that's a piece that is often missing. And it's a huge opportunity again for BD professionals to make sure that alignment is, and marketing and PR professionals to make sure that alignment is happening, so that I'm not disappointed that they're not giving the same response time as I would. Well, now you're in a bigger firm and big law is different, right? So I think that's something, what's the difference between where they came from and where they are now, and really understanding that, and what needs they may have or what expectations they may have, and how to kind of shape those expectations for them.
And I think we have to be patient with them. We all have to remember this is a risk for them. They're all going to say, oh, my clients are coming. No, they're not. No, they're not. And they may also be involved. Well, many of them try to make a move when there's not. I've had to make a move a week before a major product liability trial. I've had people make a move while they were closing deals. And so we also have to be prepared that they're also going to do their day job, and we might have to pivot a little bit. But they have to be involved. They can't not be involved.
Right.
I have some examples here, and sorry if I used a couple from my own experience, but where people hit the story. But first thing, I also wanted to use this. If any partner or anybody else comes to you and said, I don't like the headline, well, they're not going to take the headline off your press release. And the reporter probably didn't write the headline. So there's usually not a lot you can do about the headline. I used to have one partner come to me and I said, I don't like when they say robs or raids or takes, and I'm like, they're not going to be kinder or gentler, because then people don't read the article. So you need to get over the fact that you have any control over the headline. What I liked about this is so many of them, especially this Aiken one. Aiken continues to expand energy and infrastructure. Okay. It talks right there about what it means for their firm, that they're expanding that practice, right? It's really, I really like that headline. Or when they talk about the groups, a lot of these are groups, right? Or former leaders. How about this Boyce Schiller one? What's hot now? Everywhere. AI is everywhere. They get and come out and emphasize her AI experience. So I really liked, and here on the Nelson Mullins ones, which I certainly obviously had some participation in, is we emphasized how we were growing and had grown our offices. So it wasn't just, you know, we were able to force that really up at the start of the press release. So they caught on. Small markets. And many of you are at smaller firms or have smaller markets. As I spoke about the attorneys I had onboarded in Charleston, South Carolina, are they connected to the community? Were they a former prosecutor? Were they somebody that's known in the community? I've brought on former congressmen. Know your market and know who's going to be interested in that. What does their practice mean for the community? Are they involved in something that's going to help grow? Are they a land use person who can bring in, and this happened to me in Raleigh, it's going to bring in a big Amazon warehouse, and how can you tie that? And also, are there thought leadership opportunities? Lastly, in some smaller markets, if you do have a business journal, you might want to think about, is there a fund that you want to use? I'm so anti-pay to play, I can't tell you, but to get in the business journal now, you got about 2 opportunities. You pay it, or you have some way to tie them to an article that's important to the business journal. Sylvia?
I would agree. And I think the really interesting thing about knowing your market in terms of communications is I was recently in Chattanooga, and one of the partners said to me, you know, when you ask somebody where they went to school, they're gonna answer where they went to high school, not college. And I got a big kick out of that. But it's true, right? In a smaller market. So, you know, having the practice or the firm's name on T-shirts at the local,
Mhm.
you know, baseball game, little league game, those things, I mean, that clearly is not what you'd be doing in New York City or
Right.
major markets. But those things matter, and that's a great way again to get the Lateral's name out there, the firm's name out there, be at those games and things like that in the community.
Oh, sponsoring the whatever run and having the firm do it, or be at the Heart Walk and having the firm T-shirts, correct. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
you've just brought in somebody who used to be the head of the American Heart Association committee in that city, and they can talk about it. You have to think creatively about if they have ties to a community. If it's, you know, not a national firm and a national practice, you have different thoughts or concerns, and you still have to think of it creatively.
And that brings up, you know, that brings up something else, which is what have you been doing, Lateral, that you think has been successful, and how are you measuring that success? So, you know, what kinds of marketing activities, communications activities, business development activities have been working for you in your market and
Mhm.
in your targets, when among your target companies? And that's just helpful information to know, because now you know who to communicate to and how to communicate.
Um, I can remember I have started the social media program at 2 firms, and I can remember trying to explain why it was important and explaining the different channels to firm leadership of why you want to do LinkedIn and why you want to use Instagram. And actually, I can also remember having a person who was extremely negative about social media come up to me after we had launched a campaign to target law students, right? And he was like, well, my son is a 3rd year at this school, and he is just been telling me that all the students are talking about us and we have a great campaign. And so more and more people, obviously, over my 20-year career are using social media. But there are some tips. You'll see this is a picture of when I onboarded a Cleveland office for Nelson Mullins. We shot that group picture on a phone that day, and seeing a lot of people all at once pulls your eye. It really does. It makes you think. Some of these laterals aren't going to know. I can't tell you how many people have asked me how to help them get their password or how to get in social media. You're not going to win it all, but you do want to help them post. And if you don't have a internal mechanism, there are tools out there to help the firm know what everybody's sharing. You're going to have an internal announcement about sharing your LinkedIn, or hopefully you have a process to get people to share your LinkedIn page. And also, I can't tell you enough about the power of video. And it's a chance, if you can get your new lateral on video, shoot a why I joined video. It helps recruiting. Recruiting will love to share that. They'll put it out. You can put it up with the announcement. A hot topic, again, we've talked about. It's an opportunity to call emphasis to that practice area. There's a reason they're coming. These are very short. You can shoot them on Teams. You can shoot them on a phone. The bigger firms are obviously going to have a stronger social media practice. Use video to help with your announcements. Use it. People aren't reading the Great American Novel on LinkedIn, guys. You got to have.
Well, you could use the video to send to clients too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Clients will watch that long before they're going to read a press release. A quick hit on that.
We just had a new lateral join. We're really excited about it. I want to take the opportunity to introduce him or her to you, and right away that, again, is every partner going to do that for their clients? No, but if you can find a few, that's a big boost to the lateral, and it's good for the firm.
We talked about this not being a one-day job for you, right? Obviously, we're used as communication staff to producing reports. Here are my press hits. Here's my social hits. So you're going to have to do that. Don't forget Chambers and Legal 500. They want your press releases. You've got to know if they're ranked in the directories. Even if you throw in Benchmark and IFLR, if they're ranked there, notify them that they've moved. You don't want their profile staying up on the previous firm forever. Share all your success stories with key groups. I know how much the head of a practice area liked it when I let him know what hits we got, where we were at, because they would often share that within the group or with clients. Another touch point of, hey, I wanted you to see this great article and that this partner has joined us. And again, I spoke about assisting the business development team with the introductions. If you're the head of corporate marketing, you may not really know the head of IP. And this person might come in and be a corporate attorney who is specializing in tech. And the IP people who are focused on tech might want to introduce that person to their clients. So be the facilitator, be the person who's willing to help with introductions. You might have a person who came in, was at a firm that was had some very strong office managing partners or team leaders, and they didn't always participate in they weren't on this or that. And I would go and say, hey, here are the 5 people whose practices are most like yours or might want to know leaders in the firm. And I would make those introductions. So don't hesitate to do that. Silvia, how about the lateral, what the lateral should be doing follow-up from their transition?
Well, no communication is over communicating is key in my opinion. And so we always recommend that people be in touch with their existing clients at least 4 times a year. And if you're new and lateraling into the firm, then definitely you want to be in touch with your existing clients, probably weekly for the first couple of months, just so that they've got to remember that that they're at a different firm now. And also following up with existing clients, again, of the firm, you've got to follow up with those partners or encourage them to follow up with the partners who are relationship lawyers to those clients. And running around the firm, introducing yourself, getting them to introduce themselves to everybody is so key. And it's such a huge opportunity because people do business with people they like and know. So if we don't know who these laterals are, so I think part of the communications plan for integrating the lateral into the firm really has to be, we say generally, identifying 3 people a week, 3 partners a week with whom you will introduce, build relationships, begin to introduce yourself, build those relationships, talk to them about work that they've done. I keep saying you like you're the laterals, but work that the laterals have done, and just help them prepare those key discussion points.
And one other thing I didn't put in here, because you as a communications or BD professional need to learn a little bit more about this lateral. What was always important for me is if they were hosting a webinar, or back in the day where everything was live, I would watch it and I would go assess how well they were able to express themselves. Is this somebody I want to put in front of the press? Is this somebody going forward I should do more with? Quite often you will talk to them and ask them what they're doing, and they'll give you 1, 2, 3, and they're not really enthusiastic, or it's just a simple list. But if you go see them present and they're presenting to clients and they're trying to get their point across, I learned more about them and it helped me place them going forward in the future as an expert in a certain area. So I think we are coming up to questions. We've got 7 in advance and 1 here. I think we have taken them all. The announcement of a junior attorney, it's a very hard get. Very doubtful if you could rely on Instagram. Or as Silvia said, Chattanooga is a great experience if you have somebody who's, born and bred, native born and bred, or was a great athlete or something you can put out there, but it's unlikely you'll get national press on it. We've talked about successful ways to pitch a single. Try to incorporate them with hot topics or pitch their practice area, tie them to the community. Lateral certainly and absolutely should be enhancing your brand. If you're not using them to enhance your brand, you need to look at your strategic plan. You need to know what it is. If you don't know and they haven't told you, you should ask. You should go to the CMO, the COO, and ask these questions, because it's your job to profile the firm. Optimal timing we've talked about, and solo versus group. This last one, Silvia and I are both dancing around it, and that is managing the firm or the attorney's expectations around your announcement. We will be putting this PowerPoint up. You can use the statistics to show them how competitive it is, but you should ask them, like, what truly do you think we should get, and I will do my best to get it, really. And you can follow up. I have followed up with Law 360 and said, hey, I'm not sure you saw this, or FYI, I announced this person Tuesday, didn't hear from you, but here's why it's important now. It's, this person is a trade sanction person. You should talk to them because there's a million sanctions going on, or, tariffs. So definitely do your follow-up. But
And follow-up is key, right? For not only you all as marketing professionals, but also the laterals, right? Encourage them to follow up on these new relationships they're building in the firm. That's really key, because that is a major part of integration.
And lastly, I wanted to make sure that you all know my email is huffman@postoncommunications.com if you need any follow-up. And Silvia, yours is?
Coulter@LawVision.com.
And lastly, I want to announce that my coworker, Georgie, who, thank you very much, Georgie, for handling all the technical side of today's presentation. We have arranged for Georgie to discuss the upcoming directory season. Yes, the minute the Chambers and Legal 500 come out, we start it all over again. And Kush is coming on, who is the US editor, on May 21st at noon to discuss with Georgie not only the changes. In each year they do some subtle changes here or there, or they add practice areas, or very importantly, if you want to get them to add a state or a practice area, which I've had to do many times, of the justification of why you should have a table for product liability in Philadelphia or healthcare in South Carolina. He will tell you how to do all those things. And you will also be able, if you register again, to send questions in advance so that we can tee them up to Kush, things you might not be thinking of. He's really great also. If you have an attorney telling you, you must do this, and you know it's wrong, you can come back and say, hey, I talked to the US editor. I had a lawyer who was a very prolific writer, and he also felt that every year they should receive the 4-page list of every article he'd ever written. every year as an addendum to the, and I could not convince him it was not a smart idea. So any questions or difficulties you've had with lawyers, if you could send us your questions in advance, Georgie will be happy to get Kush to answer those for you. Silvia, thank you for today. I appreciate your insights very much.
Thank
And
you.
we will be sending these slides and the recording to everybody. And if you have any questions, just reach out. So I thank you very much again.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.